We've got like a jam-packed meeting. So we've got a fiscal update. We've got a couple things in the Constitution we've got to vote on. We're also going to have a couple people demonstrate some of the things that they make. So it's kind of like another DIY meeting, only it's not stuff with bee products. It's stuff for your bees. And then we're at the very end. We're going to have an update on the honeybee, the North American Honeybee Expo. And at the very end, we're going to do a little recap on why we should buy local bees. If you're new, don't buy your bees from North Carolina, buy them local. And we got a couple bee sellers in the room today that I'm going to let come to the front. They can tell you where they're from, and you guys can order bees if you need to order bees. So without delay, I see a lot of new faces here. I'll be the first person to admit, unless I talk to you like several hours, I'm not going to remember your name. But I think I see some new faces. And somebody told me that you're new.
Yep.
So do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Sure.
Put you on the spot. Sorry.
Name's Anthony. I'm here because my wife decided to get a flow hive last year. Didn't really do much with it, and I said, you know what, I should learn something about it. I'm friends with Jeff. He recommended this. We signed up last night on the family plan, so
Awesome.
I have a group number if you need it, but
Awesome.
brand new.
That's how I started.
Less than 12 hours.
Anthony, that's how I started 11 years ago. My wife,
For real?
same thing. Full hive. We're keeping bees. She's been a suit 3 times in 11 years.
Okay.
What town are you from?
We're out in downtown. We're up
Downtown.
by like right before Guthrie'sville, up by Osborne Road. So there's a
Some of
few.
your neighbors are
There's a
probably
few hives out there. Actually, there's a few in my neighborhood that they sell honey and everything. So we have a lot of bees in the area where I'm at. But
Awesome. Welcome.
it's also how I got chickens. So
All right, we got a couple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow. Let me start. You're the first one I saw. Yeah, let me.
I'm Pat Gorman. A couple of years ago, I'm a graduate of North Carolina State, and I went down. They do honeybee medicine, a large thing, and I went and did the beginner's track. And then last year, I picked up a hive to see how much I didn't know about bees, and that's why I'm here.
All still learning. And you're also new?
Of a couple months. Cheryl Harai, and I know I've talked to a number of people. I'm working out on Firethorn Farm in Westchester, and they want to put in a batch of hives, and they're working on a veterans bee therapy program as well. So I'm their farm manager and coordinator. So
Awesome.
And
Welcome.
Cheryl, I met Cheryl briefly. You undersold yourself a little bit. You are a manager beekeeper from California, right?
I am.
No, not to put you under the spot. But.
I'm also an ethnobotanist doctor. So
Wow.
ethnobotanist, it's the way people. It's like a combination of botany and history, although it's more than that. It's the way people throughout time have used plants.
Thank you.
So it often relates to bees because they use plants.
Thank you.
And one other thing, if you want to mess with me, you got to go to her. I won't tell you why.
Okay, I teach judo.
A lot about you.
Like 70-something years. Anyway.
Yes. Thanks for coming, Cheryl.
Welcome.
In her spare time, she's a fighter pilot.
All right, I saw a couple other pants.
I don't want to follow that though. I'm Sean. I'm
Drink
from
beer.
Tennis Square. My kids have gotten me into this. They bought me a set of beehive boxes for Christmas, and I've got a buddy of mine who has some property, and he's been doing all kind of things to his property to make it more interesting. You know, with duck homes, and put in a trout. Or not trout, a lake for fish that he stocks. So we're just doing all kind of stuff with his property. Bees is the next thing. So
Awesome. Welcome. And you're new as well?
Yeah, my name's Susie Warner. Also just got these hive for Christmas from my kids. I'm a homeschool mom, so this is kind of our curriculum. So I figured I'm in Spring City.
Spring City.
Yeah, like Kimberton.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Welcome. Anybody else? You're not raising your hand.
No, I'm here.
You guys are new as well? Moly.
It's that time of year.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Harvey. I'm from Valley Township. I'm on the learning curve. I'm a total beginner. And you get a lot of information.
Are you don't have hives yet, right? Okay, have you signed up for our beginner course? George is going to explain a little bit about that.
We'll do that today.
Okay. And you also are new?
But I'm Tim Mooney up in Nottingham, so south of Chester County. My grandmother kept bees, and my parents kept bees, and that was my turn. That's about it.
Awesome. Sweet.
I'm Steve Brower, similar to this gentleman, and you as well. Getting ready to retire, and I don't know if my wife was more worried about me or her. So she bought me a hive for last year for Christmas, and I started getting into it. I've been around bees all my life, but I never cared for them. I have orchards and that type of thing. And I quickly learned that I know absolutely nothing about them. So I didn't get the hive. I didn't buy the bees. I didn't do any of that. And somebody suggested sign up for this. So,
Awesome.
So here I am.
You guys are all on the right path. Welcome. Is that it for new people? The whole room is new.
I'm from the CCBA later as well. And we have our first hive at our home this year.
Awesome. Welcome.
I just want to make sure everybody knows we're in good shape financially.
Howard is our treasurer, for
Yeah,
those who don't know
Howard
Howard.
Feinstein.
So we have Howard's our treasurer, Chris is our, Chris disappeared, our assistant treasurer, so, Howard makes the finances run, so he's gonna give us an overview of our funds.
Right. So we have our normal operating fund with a 58K in it, and we have the separate Save the Bees fund. That we still need to find more projects to fund with that. Next slide. This is just some highlights of income in the first column and expenses in the second column. You can see we made about $4,000 from the conference last year. I think it's on the next slide. We have apiary expenses. We have queen hives that we prepare for the apprentice program, and they're used for the beginners program and such. So we had to, this last year we had to buy bees. We had a tough winter last year. So that's why that's up over $4,000. We bought a trailer this year, obviously a one-time expense. Over $6,000 under capital items. Insurance costs a lot of money. And the meetings includes the renting the space, the coffee and donuts, and also door prizes. And then using the website, we have to pay the Club Express company money, and then when you use your credit card, there's expenses for that. So that ended up almost $4,000. But we net it out minus $16.24. That's pretty darn good. So George is going to copy that, cover that, right? The $16.22.
We lost $16.
Yes, you're going to donate
So we did lose
that.
money.
Pass the hat.
So anyway,
A follow-up.
if you have more detailed questions, let me know. I brought my computer with all the details.
But, you know, so, yeah, so last year, our income and expenses were about $60,000, so we're not huge, but, you know, we have things that we do and things we want to do. And we realize we're a non-for-profit, so we give money away, we do education, both of the community and of the beekeepers. And we do have $73,000 in total, which some people view as too much, which I would maybe agree with you, but we need ideas and people to spend that money, right? So we want to do that smart, and we want to do that, you know, with a plan and not just throw it away. So again, the officers and the are always looking for ideas and ways to spend money. So if there's something that you think we should be doing that we're not doing, please let us know. But it's always nice to have some money in the bank, you know, to be flexible. So, and I don't know how we ended up $16 loss last year. It was pure luck, you know, but that's the goal, right? The goal every year is to be about neutral. So we're not losing or gaining. So we just keep it safe.
Where's the money kept? Is it like in money markets, or is it like or is it just sitting in a 0.001%
It's
saving.
in a money market.
So you're getting a little bit, okay.
So it's a trust bank, which has been a good bank so far.
I used to work there for 20 some years.
I think we had $1,000 in interest last year, so.
Yeah, yeah.
We did make a little bit of money on our money, but not much. But if anyone has any recommendations in the stock market, we'll.
The only recommendation is
Other-
to follow my advice.
Buy low, sell high.
Yeah, other questions or comments about the finances for Howard? Anybody? No, going once, going twice. Again, Howard took on this role last year and him and Chris have done a phenomenal job with the transition and we're most appreciative and it's great to see our finances in good shape. We will get audited, every few years we get outside audited. Every year we get inside audited. So we do have a way of making sure that money actually exists and not sitting in Howard's bank. So just to let you know that, we will audit.
All right, thank you, George.
You're welcome.
For that.
Just to be clear.
So this is the January meeting and, we're doing a lot of the business stuff is taken care of. It's something that we have to, vocalize or at least let all the club members know what's going on. So along with that, so we're proposing some constitutional amendments. So the CCBA, we're run by a board. There's a board of, I believe it's seven members currently. And so this year we decided, just like we audit the finances, we had our constitution audited by a third party that deals specifically with volunteer organizations, churches, and what have you. We are, a non-for-profit. So we had them audit our constitution, say, look, this is good. They pointed out the good things and the bad things. We went to a couple meetings with them, and then we compiled their recommendations or suggestions and decided, are they worth it or are they not worth it? What applies to us? We're beekeepers. We're not running a small island anywhere. So, we took that into account when we decided what we wanted to keep and what we didn't. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and read through this. This is our commentary of why we're making these changes or why we thought it was good for the bee organization. And then at the end, we have to meet quorum, which is right around 53 people as far as yays and nays. It's not going to be a blind vote. I'm going to ask everybody raise their hand yay, everybody raise their hand nay, and then we'll do a count. You must be a primary member. If your wife or your daughter is a secondary member, they technically don't have the right to vote. And I'm not being a dick about it, but yeah, but our law is saying this is a primary member vote. So we're gonna start right off the bat. And some of these may sound harsh, but again, the third party said, hey, if you put this in there, it covers the bee organization from some certain amount of litigation. And we just went through our expenses and none of those were for lawsuits. We want to spend our money on bees and the organization, not on fighting some issue that we overlooked. So the first one here is this section is this is for removing members for egregious behaviors. So previously we had nothing in there for that. So if you create an ass of yourself or sabotage the organization, we could have removed you, but we don't know if there was some kind of backlash that we would have suffered from that. So they proposed that we put it in there that the club has the ability to remove a person from the organization at their serious situation beyond merely the board wishes to remove a member for their egregious behavior, and then without having to justify it. So that would be Article 3, Section 3. Article 3, Section 5, the board has removed the residency requirement and associated apiary license requirement as they were deemed unfairly restrictive. This charge acknowledges the contributions. This is for the honorary lifetime membership. We had a few members out of state that contributed significant amount to the club. According to the Constitution as it's written today, we couldn't give them an honorary lifetime membership because you're required to be a Pennsylvania resident for that. So we want to pull those restrictions out. So if you are an out of state, but you're contributing a whole lot, you've done your 35 years, we're not removing the length of help for the organization, but just the residency part of the Article 3. Article 4, the board has determined that a minimum of 3 members to a maximum of 7 is sufficient to ensure effective operation of the club. Before, it was 7, and that was it. If we were less than 7, we had to appoint somebody. That they recommended, actually, legally, we don't need to have a minimum or maximum, but we felt it important to set that. So this way we didn't let the numbers dwindle down, and we don't want 25 people on the board. Nothing would ever get accomplished per se. So that's the other amendment we're going to make, or we propose to make a minimum of 3, maximum of 7. Article 4, Section 1F and G, the board of directors modify the effective expiration dates of the board terms to ensure that the newly elected board members are able to elect officers for the upcoming years. And what that is when you're elected as a board member, January 1 is when you get instated as a board member. However, the problem with that is when the outgoing board members have to elect the new officers for a term that they're not going to be part of. So our elections are in November. What we're stating is once you're elected as a board member, you now have a board vote. And what that will do is when the next, every year we re-elect officers, we elect George, we elect the conference committees and what have, well, George takes care of that, but the secretary and what have you, the board members elect those people. However, what was happening in the past, the new board members that get signed in that will have to work with the officers have no say in it. So what we're doing is we're removing that stipulation, and once you get voted in as a board member, you now have a vote, and then the outgoing board member, won't be the only one voting on that officer. And that was also recommended by the third party. Article 4, 1H. The board believes that the previous language was unduly restrictive and contends that the board members should not be subject to term limits if they wish to serve beyond the 2 terms. Okay, so what that is, and again, it was a recommendation to, in the early stages, we set it to 2 terms consecutive. You must take 1 term off, and then you can serve again. A term is 3 years. So you were allowed to serve for 6 years. You had to take 3 years off, then you're allowed to serve for another 6. Cycle on. However, it's extremely difficult to get board members. We voted for 2 people last year because we had 2 spots, and I was a reoccurring board member. This is my last term. I didn't put this in here for me because, but this would apply to me. So currently, we want to be able to roll these people over again. And it's not that we want, this isn't the U.S. Congress or Senate where I'm going to be a lifetime board member. However, if no one stands up to become a board member, we want to give the current board an opportunity to roll over. If there is a competition for the board seat, then the election will proceed. However, we get nervous every time a board seat comes up. We're soliciting. Do you want to be a board member? Do you want to be a board member?
You're new. You're in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's every year we do this. And so this is going to remove that term limit. But it still will be a free and fair election as far as if somebody wants a seat that the current board member is sitting in and their term is up, then the election will proceed. Article 7, Section 4, the quorum, we want to change from 10% to 5%. That one's a no-brainer for me because although we are a membership of 500 plus primary members, so we need a quorum today of 53. That's fine. This is an unusually large crowd. So we went upstairs, we grabbed a few chairs because we never thought we would run out of chairs. But a quorum of 10%, there's been many votes. George can attest to it that we're making phone calls. We're pulling lifelines. Get online and vote. We need 8 more people. Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case, but the involvement is less than stellar. So to make this simple, some clubs don't have a quorum. Whoever's at the meeting and votes, the yays have it, the nays don't. That's the way it works. With our constitution, we do have a quorum, and we're not going to change the quorum. We want to change the quantity of the quorum. We want to make sure that there is a set number of people, a minimum set number of people, to represent the club. We don't want to
hanging out.
A vote during a snowstorm and 3 people show up. We don't want 2 yays and 1 nays, and that makes a decision for the whole club. We still want to have a quorum, just less. So it's not a burden on those that are trying to get the vote. Article 9, Section 3. This change is made to address the inconsistency in numbering. This is more of a clerical thing. We had A, Bs, and they suggested that we change it numerically. Section A, there was parts of it here and there, so we wanted to renumber to organize it. We're not changing actual verbiage. We're just changing the organization of it to make it more flowing document. Article 10. This is a new article that incorporates and reflects that the CCBA maintains general liability and indemnity insurance. We had it before, but we actually want to write it down that the club is required to have it, which is not a horrible thing to require the club to have, because I'm not even going to get into what could happen, but right now we're doing it voluntarily outside of the Constitution. We want to write it down so it's set in stone that the club will have insurance in case something foul happens. So that's really the changes we have. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Some of them are just clerical clarification. Some of them are to make it easier for the club in the future. We are not going to vote per article. It's going to be a blanket yes or no. We feel that breaking it down, each one, everyone's had this, or at least they've had the option to look at it for at least 30 days.
60.
What's that? 60 days. So new members, obviously if you just joined, you didn't have your 60 days. However, you still get a solid vote. So it's not going to be a blind vote. I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna start with the nays. So any primary member who feels that this should not move forward.
Question first.
Yes, sir.
What if we've already voted online? Do we not raise a hand?
That is correct. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, because George sent the vote out earlier this week or 2 weeks ago to give everyone an opportunity to vote. If you have voted online, it's not necessary to. In fact, I recommend you don't.
There's a question online. Jim, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I'm troubled by the wording of the first change. The phrase "without cause" by itself means you don't have to provide any justification. The text requires justification for expelling a member, and I would suggest a wording change there to replace "without cause" with text like "for causes other than failure to pay dues."
The problem with that, and I've heard the argument already a few times, and not to reduce anything that you're saying, is then we have to list out the causes. We don't want to have to pick and choose, and it's per the board, so it's not going to be a one person decision. There's going to be vetted by 5 people before that decision, or 3 to 7 people before that decision is made. I know it does sound harsh. It was recommended just to cover ourselves, because we did have in the past some unruliness that we were afraid to do anything with. So it's not going to be on a whim. It's still going to go through multiple people before that decision is made. So I know it sounds harsh, but it's really just to cover the club. I don't expect the board members to do a mass exodus of members because they didn't want to attend the conference in January. That's not what that wasn't the objective or goal. Yes, sir.
In support of your statement, you just don't know what people are going to do. I've been a scoutmaster and seen stuff that I wish I'd never seen. So I think keeping it open like you have is a good idea because you just don't know what some idiot's going to do.
And that's right. You know, the sky's the limit when it comes to litigation. You know, somebody made $7 million because they spilled hot coffee on their leg. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. And we're just trying to cover the club from litigation. We're not trying to reduce members. We're just trying to blanket. We want this club to be perpetual. And verbiage like that, however harsh it may sound, it covers the club.
I think the alternate text also covers you. And I don't think you have to specify all the reasons because you state in that amendment that you have to publish the reason for expulsion. So I think you're still covered without, when you say without cause, it means you could potentially expel someone from the club because you don't like the label they put on their honey jars.
That is correct.
That's
you are
not going to
correct.
happen.
So I'm not here to. We're not making any changes, and I don't want to be firm on it as much as I am. But like I said, we've had these out here. The few people that have responded back about any changes that they wanted, you know, we've discussed them one-on-one, and this is where the board feels, and this is a lot of the verbiage is coming from the third party reviewer that we had look at this. So this is where it stands right now. If you don't agree, and it's a blanket, it's one or none. You know, you're either gonna vote for all of them or you're gonna vote for none of them. So if you feel that this isn't right, then you have to vote a nay. I hate to say it like that, but that's the way it is. I had a question in the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I think the online questioner has a good point. I think that the wording of that does need to be checked. I think the carte blanche for no reason whatsoever, and then the article goes on, or the amendment goes on to say, you know, we have to specify what the reasons are. It doesn't make sense. It kind of conflicts. It's very ambiguous, and I don't think it should be left open like that. I don't think anybody should have that kind of power.
Well, no, one person does have that power. It's a power of 7-3.
Right, but the word, what I'm saying is, I agree with the amendment, except for the wording of it. That's all. I just agree with you.
Well, and come next year, we may make a verbiage change again if this doesn't go through. What's up?
That was just gonna be my question is, so if we vote now and enough people don't like it, then it can be reworded and voted on again?
We can change it as much as we want, just we need quorum to make the changes.
And 60 days.
And 60 days. So right now, this is what's on the table. The Constitution's been around for a while and it's evolved. And again, we're running a bee club. We're not forming an island.
If this gets voted no, I assume it will reappear at some point.
That is correct.
You know, this year probably, because there's some elements of this that I think allow us to function better and need to not wait till next year. We try to do the amendments once a year. So
clarify something. These are the rationale, the amendments, the actual amendment.
They were online for everyone to see.
So everybody saw the wording of the actual amendment.
Yes.
They had the opportunity to.
Right. Go ahead, David.
Why do we have to vote on the Constitution? Why can't the board just agree to change the Constitution?
Because it's in the Constitution. It's a redundant cycle. To make Constitution changes, it has to be a quorum of the members. We decided not to change. We decided not to change that, because I think it's fair. Everyone should know. And a lot of people don't even know we have a Constitution. You think it's a bee club, it's a church, it's a whatever volunteer organization. But no, I say early. Not too long ago, how old is this Constitution? 10, 15 years? 10 years? We decided that the club is big enough that we have enough diversity of members that we need to start putting a little checks and balances and cover the club itself. And again, like I said before, we want this club to be perpetual. I'll get to you in a minute. The goal of this club is not to to isolate and expel members. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to blanket the club so it lives forever. You know, members will come and go. I know that. We've had long-term members come and go. We're just trying to cover the, I have a question over here.
Just a quick comment first. If you want to see the constitutional documents, log onto the website, go into the document library under resources, governing documents, CCBA Constitution, and you'll see the original, the amendments, all the way up into the rationale for the proposed amendments that Ed is we're looking at right now, as well as the proposed
So
constitution.
I'm going to do one last thing here. Because we do have to keep this moving, I'm going to take no more than 3 more questions. And I'm just going to be selective first come, first serve if there is 3 more questions. And try to answer them the best I can. Go ahead.
Is it possible to amend the motion to accept this whole thing to a motion to accept everything except for the wording of the first section?
Not today. Not today. The board has decided it's going to be all or nothing. And again, this doesn't have to go through. The Bee Club is still going to exist if this fails. It's going to, you know, and we will rewrite it if it fails. However, we didn't feel there was anything in here that was so radical that it was going to fail. But again, if it does, that's fine. I'm not begging to get this passed. This just makes it easier for the future of the club. That's all I'm asking for.
I mean, it does say a serious situation.
Yeah.
And it's not saying, you know, if the person just doesn't like the shirt that someone's wearing. I mean, it's right. You know, it's like
that's where we stand.
I don't like my friend.
And if it passes, that's great. If it doesn't, I mean, when I say it's great, it's going to be easier for a board member to be a board member right now, and the club to exist. So we're just trying to cover the club. That's all we're asking. We're not looking to, like I said, we're not looking to expel anybody for any reason.
I recommend we just take a vote, see where we're
Yeah.
at. We really gotta move on.
Okay, so I'm gonna, hopefully this is gonna be a smaller group of hands. I'm gonna go with the nays first. If you have a nay, raise your hand. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 nays. Does that sound right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. We got 5 nays. Yays. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We got 31 yays. And plus I'm going to write that down, but so we had online voting as well. I have to compile those numbers. And then, you know, we'll send out an email on where it goes with that. And again, I appreciate everyone's time, and I wasn't trying to stir up any trouble. But, you know, this is where we are today, and that's all I wanted.
Hey, thanks. Thank you all for coming today, first and foremost. And thank you all for everyone who helped out in 2024. Thank you. And I'm excited to be back in 2025 and excited for the room to be full and everybody to be here thinking about how to best care for their bees. So we're going to take a little bit and give you sort of my thoughts on what we should be doing now and what's important for the club. So that's 5-ish minutes. I said 15 minutes to fly high. Fly high is not an ego thing. I've been accused of saying fly high is an ego thing. No, fly high is don't limit anybody in the room, right? We should not be limited. We should all achieve the best we can achieve with our beekeeping and everything in general, right? So the goal of everybody should be to fly high. It's not me flying higher than anybody else. Just to put that out there. Heard about that. So these are the officers, really quick, that are going to be serving in 2025. All these names are basically returned from 2024, which is awesome. So, you know, we are functioning with the same group of officers, which is amazing. Really quick for the new people in the room who don't know who the faces are. You met Donna, who's leading this meeting, who gives me only 5 minutes. Mark Metters is behind so everything tech related.
And I'll also give him 5 minutes.
Is Mark. Carissa is unfortunately has COVID. Carissa is our secretary. She's online. Russ Luck, our past president, is returning as assistant secretary. He's back there. He's going to be helping me out with a bunch of things this year. Howard, who you've heard from, who's in the back, is our lead treasurer. And Chris, who's sitting in the back there with Russ, the assistants are sitting together at the table, is our assistant treasurer. The officers do meet once a month to plan the following month's agenda. So they are giving a fair amount to make this club run. Really quick, everything in this club for the new people gets driven through committee, right? So if something is going to get delivered to the membership, it goes through committee. And that's important because if I don't have a committee lead and the committee lead does not have members, then what happens? Nothing. Thank you. That's probably more important than anything to hear, right? So everything gets delivered through committee. The committee needs a lead and the committee needs members in order for program to function. Okay. So when the ask comes out, I know this isn't B related, but I just want to make sure that everyone sort of understands what goes on in my crazy brain. Like, that's how decisions are being made to what we offer and how we do it. Can we get a lead and can we get volunteers? And everybody in this room can contribute, right? To help and make these things happen. You know, like if there's something that interests you today, please seek out one of these committee leads and say, I'm interested in that. Let me get more involved because that's going to help them deliver more program. And all the money in this club, generally with the exception of Keep the Lights On, all gets delivered through the committees, right? So everything that we do from an operations standpoint gets financed through the budget and a set amount of money goes to the committee leads. That's how we run things here. So if you have an idea, if you think we should be doing something, I would strongly suggest to find a committee that would fit into. And if you think that you have an idea or something that's not going to fit into a committee, please let me know and maybe we're missing something that we should be doing. Does that all make sense? That's the last time I'm going to talk about operations, but that's just an overview of how the club operates in general. Is that pretty fair, Charlie? Charlie's been with me for a long time. Charlie's the queen lead. He needs help too. So really quick, the leads. The apprentice program is this year it's Russ Lux who's in the back and myself is leading the apprentice program. The beginners course is Mark Metters who's up front here. B-Chat is Donna, Diane, and Ed. Ed's sitting here. Community outreach is Damon. That's our all the things that we get asked to speak at and outreach and connection with the community. Entertainment, thankfully, is Monica's awesome, is back this year.
Door prizes.
And door prizes. Monica, raise your hand. Monica's always looking for help. We spent, you know, we spent over $6,000, and I'm saying this because I'm happy about it, not because I'm upset about it. We spent $6,000 on entertainment last year just for members to celebrate you as members, right? Just to the Hive Hop picnic, the gala, the holiday party, the door prize. It's all that's to celebrate you guys. Honestly, bring people together, be social, hang out, and Monica did an awesome job with spending all that money. And she asked for more this year, and I said, sure. Grants and Paul, raise your hand, Paul. We do give out money every year. That program is administered through Paul. Sheena's not horticulture. We do plants, so we sell native plants every year. Sheena does this great job. We have a bunch of people that come to my house and seed every Thursday at 10 o'clock. Queen team, I said, it's Charlie. The women's B group is Donna, Carissa, Sheena. So that's our community committee leads. Unfortunately, what you don't see on there this year is conference. So unfortunately, we had to cancel our conference this year because I could not get a committee lead to run that committee. So that ask went out. Unfortunately, I understand. You know, we all have lives. We're all busy. But as I said last year, and I said now, if I don't have a lead, we're not doing it. And if the lead doesn't have help, we're not doing it. You know, because one of the big concerns that I have personally is burnout. You know what I mean? Like I worry about burnout tremendously because we're all volunteers and I don't want any of these people who obviously all these are return people, right? They're highly valuable for me being president. If I was up here trying to do this all myself, I would fail, but I can't have people burn out. And this is a real discussion that happens amongst the officers and the committee leads is burnout. So if you're sitting in the room and say, hey, I can help Monica, I can help Damon, I can help Mark, I can help on B-Chat, however you can help is very valuable. Because if I don't have the help, like I said, I'll just say no. And that's not trying to be mean or it's just trying to be sustainable. Anyway, so unfortunately, there is no conference this year. That's going to have a financial impact. It's going to have two impacts on the club. It's going to have an educational impact. It's going to have a financial impact. To minimize both of these, we plan on doing small seminars through the year. So you will see 3 or 4 educational events that are bigger, not as big as the conference, but that are really more hands-on and educational to hopefully help out. Anyway, next. Heart's going.
Breathe.
Yeah, I'm trying to do in 5 minutes, so I'm gonna get to bees in a second because that's what's interesting to me. So we have 4 places we keep bees in the club. Okay, so we keep bees at Bondsville Mill Park and Downingtown. We keep bees at Cheslin Apiary, which is our apprentice nuke yard and our queen yard. We keep bees at Sugartown, and come April, we're going to be keeping bees here at the Park Center, which is going to be really exciting because for 2 reasons. One is that after the meetings, we're going to have the ability to go out and get into hives. So those who come to meetings who want to get their hands into bees will have that opportunity. And the second thing, it allows us to continue to make connections with the community. One of the connections that Chuck is around here somewhere. I saw Chuck come in to the left. Raise your hand, Chuck. Oh, there he is. You know, Chuck and the VA in Coatesville have put together a proposal which has been accepted to start a veterans program through beekeeping, and the hope is that you know, some of these sites will be used to sort of foster that relationship. So these sites are there for 2 purposes. One, they're there for education, right? So whether or not a beginner's course, apprentice program, the Queen program, like places where members can go and get educated about bees. And so that's the primary reason to have these clubs. And I'm a big believer, if we're a bee club, we probably should be managing some bees somewhere. So, so they're the sites. Now, with that said, we are looking for a Bondsville Mill Park apiary manager. So Bondsville Mill is in Downingtown. That site has will have 3 hives in it.
It can have up to 5.
And that site is there because we have a relationship with Bondsville Mill Park to do some education with them around pollinators, around bees. It's a location that we do our beginners course. It's got some nice, from a community outreach point, there's a lot of people that go in and out of that. We have our sign there. There's a little bit of community engagement that happens in there. What we basically need somebody to do is be responsible for those hives. You know, every 2 weeks monthly check, make sure they're okay. The club pays for the management of those hives. So, you know, the mite treatments, the sugar feeding, things like that, we paid for. If you decide to keep honey from those hives, we allow you to keep the honey. So if you want to harvest the honey, but then you have to feed the sugar water back. We'll provide you the sugar, but you need to feed it back. So that's the compensation for being an apiary manager. You have to work with whoever's doing the beginner's course out there to communicate. So there's a little bit of communication that needs to happen. If anybody is interested in that position, raise your hand now.
I could help.
Okay, so we got Greg.
I don't.
We're good. Mark, you got names? Good, thank you.
I'm willing to help somebody.
Anthony, right?
Anthony,
Yeah,
Greg.
well, it is right behind my house.
Oh, awesome.
So
He knows nothing
so
about
I
bees.
don't know
That's our apiary manager.
but I'm willing to help and learn. I can walk there. So.
Yeah.
But just along with that, could maybe the committee head things and everything like that become like a 2-year thing and have an assistant who could potentially then take it over? Because like that, like I don't have enough knowledge to be a apiary manager, but I could certainly help somebody and then maybe do it next year, which would also help with the
Absolutely.
burnout
You know,
thing.
if there's something that you're interested in, please reach out. No one's excluded, right? I mean, and especially on a committee, I mean, I tried to get some assistant committee leads. I wasn't all that successful, but Shirley, I remember being in your spot where you're new and you're sitting there like, what can I offer? You can offer a lot. So don't be afraid to say, can I help out in this area, you know?
What do you have for organizing these small seminars? What's the plan on that?
Good question. I'm not yet. but yes, not yes.
Sounds like you'd like to write a curriculum for us.
That's what I was thinking.
There you go.
We will, yeah, so that educational piece hasn't started yet, but I will send out
I'd be willing to take
an ask of people to get involved with these small seminars. There's a couple ideas of what these seminars will be, but that's about what the extent of it is right now.
Okay.
Cool. Everyone understand? That's where we keep bees. They're there for a club. If you want to, for some reason, access these sites or use these sites, or please don't just show up and put your hands in the hives. Please let somebody know like why you want to do it and what you're trying. We'll probably say yes and make it work, but just don't show up and just start digging through bees just because.
Question, where exactly is the Cheslin Apiary?
The Cheslin Apiary is at 651 Brandywine Road in Westchester. It's off. It's across from Embryville. Embryville. And they're all small hives there. So we have the apprentice nukes. So some of you have been in the apprentice program. Show up, and Joe and I get people's hands in hives. That's kind of part of the apprentice program. And Charlie does the queen mating boxes, but that's in Embryville. And Sugartown's in Malvern, right? Sugartown Historic.
Yeah.
Is in Malvern. Bondsville's in Downingtown. So these are the 4 sites we have bees. Next. Okay, finally. Oh, my goal. I'm gonna get to bees. I promise you. This is my goals. I want to be inclusive of all kinds of beekeepers. I know that we have beginner beekeepers, we have experienced beekeepers, we have hobbyist beekeepers, we have people that run hundreds of hives or thousands of hives. Everybody's welcome. Everyone's bringing their own value to the association. We have treatment-free people, we have treatment people, we have people that run big hives, we have people that run small hives, we have people that run top bar hives. I really don't care, honestly. As long as we're all respectful of each other and bring our opinions together, we can all exist in the same room, I think. And of all skill levels. We're all learners, right? It's great to have new people in the room who are just on their journey. I think the one cool thing about beekeeping is you're always learning, right? I mean, the way you look at your hive, the way you manage your hive, the way you see the bees is always adapting to maybe your own personal goals or your own knowledge. So the more we can come together and discuss and share, the better off it's going to be for everybody, honestly. Engagement with club members in the local community. We talked about that already. I want to increase everybody's knowledge and skill level, right? I mean, if Jeff Eckel, who's our local inspector, says when he goes to see a Chester County club member, like it should be better than seeing a Bucks County club. No offense to anyone who's in Bucks County, but that's the goal, right? The goal is when the inspector shows up to your apiary, your shit's in order, right? Like you know what's going on in your hives, and your hives are healthy, and part of the reason for that is because you're a member of Chester County Bee Club, right? You take advantage of the resources we have, and you learn how to manage your bees well, and that's important. And I think Jeff would hopefully say that is true. I'm not sure if he would, but that's the goal. So again, increase everybody's knowledge and skill level. And I'm a big believer, and I know bees aren't native and all that, but this whole idea of ecosystems has become like fascinating to me. Like we're all part of an ecosystem in some level, right? So if we can sort of support the health of the club or support the health of native plants or outreach, we all benefit in that in some way, right? And we should have no reason living in Chester County that we aren't making our ecosystems better, period, right? Because we have more resources than 99.9% of the people in the world, right? For sure. And so why can't we use that to benefit ourselves and our neighbors and our bees, right? So that's my thought. We are very blessed and fortunate to be part of it. Beginner education. So there's for new beekeepers in the room, we thought this is important. There's 2 things that we do to help beginners along their journey. Generally a good idea, honestly. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but trying to get that mentoring and an increased knowledge up front is going to make you more sustainable, right? And going to result in you buying less bees. And there's 2 ways we do that. We have the beginner's course, which is a monthly classroom. I sent out an email about this, but there's a monthly classroom, March through September. There's monthly in-hive labs where you sit and inspect bees and some other things that go along with it. And that starts up in March. We generally have a class, a total class size of about 25 or 30 people. Mark's running that from an educational standpoint this year.
To correct something on the slides, it says Apprentice Nuke Yard. That's not true. It's at the 4 sites at the 4 apiary sites, and we're limiting class size to 6 people in the lab sessions. The large classroom session could be 100 people, but we want 6 people limited in the yard. If we need to add more sessions, we'll add more sessions.
We had a club member who, he's not here, I don't see him today, but he did the beginner's course for 5 years in a row. And I said, why are you back?
I said the same thing.
I said, why are you taking this class again? It was just, some of it was social and some of it was a continuing learning kind of thing. I don't recommend people to take the class 5 years in a row.
By the way, he was in that class. I was teaching it this last year. The first class he was in, 10 minutes into the class, he goes, I didn't know that. So yeah, you do learn things. Sometimes it's because you looked away while you were trying. You should have been learning it the first time, and you miss it. And that's just human nature.
So this is a group-based course, right? You meet as a group to get the classroom stuff, and then you go to small groups to get the in-hive stuff. So it's a group-based kind of setting, okay? We've been doing this a while. There's a curriculum you follow, certain things that get done. You meet your other new beekeepers in a group type setting. It's got nice social support. It's fun. The other program we have is the apprentice program. So the apprentice program is those people that are thinking about getting bees or getting bees. And what we do is we end up pairing you up with a teacher. So you're the apprentice, another CCBA member is a teacher, and you go out to their apiary site and work in their apiary site with their teacher twice a month. So it's more individualized. It's more one-on-one, and
thank you.
And we are looking for teachers. So Russ is coordinating that. Raise your hand, Russ. You will see an email if you haven't sent. I can't remember if I sent it out. Looking for teachers. Please, we need about 20 to 30 teachers for that program. So if you've talked before, thank you. If you're willing to teach this year, please let Russ know. You have anything else to add, Russ?
Any of the new people here to the club, if you need experience, the best way to get it is have your hands in the hive with an experienced teacher. So I highly recommend that. We've had a lot of people in the club be teachers. It's real fun. It's very enjoyable for me to share information. So like George said, we only have one person registered to be a teacher, and that's me.
I'll be the second.
So we got 2. Okay, we need more. So and then if you're a newer beekeeper, it's great to develop a relationship with the teacher, and you can call them up. My apprentices call me up. Hey, I got this going on, that going on. I'm able to answer their questions, and I find it very, very enjoyable to share information. And like Mark said, George said, we're all learning beekeeping, new techniques. Appreciate your support.
And then part of that apprentice program, it's an optional. We meet with the apprentices on Tuesday, Joe and I at the nuke yard, and we just basically get our hands in nukes, and we're learning on how to read a frame and handle bees. So that's part of that program too. I think they're both highly valuable programs for what we charge for them. A little bit of that is dependent on who you are and who your teacher is, but I would highly encourage any new beekeeper, or if you're a newish beekeeper and you haven't got your bees to survive the winter, or at least all of your bees, or most of your bees to survive the winter, consider signing up for that. I think it's a great way to learn. We do a little bit of education at these meetings, but we can't teach you how to become a sustainable beekeeper at a club. Honestly, I could, but they wouldn't let me do it.
For those of us that are brand new to beekeeping, would you suggest taking the beginner's course first and then the apprentice course, or can you take them both?
You can take them both together. People sign up for both. I think it really depends on you as a learner, honestly. Are you one that's gonna do better in a group type classroom, small group setting, or are you okay with doing a one-on-one apprenticeship? They're both, the apprenticeship is probably they're probably equal time commitment. Maybe the apprenticeship is a little bit more of a time commitment, but they're pretty close. So time commitment's not different. I think it's just a matter of how you see yourself learning the best, honestly. They're going to cover the same material. You know, your in-hive work will probably be more in the apprentice program. And what you learn from a knowledge-based standpoint will probably be a little bit more variable depending on who your teacher is in the apprentice program versus the beginners program that's a little bit more structured as far as what you learn. I mean, you may get paired up with a honey producer, and that honey producer may just want to talk about honey production. No offense to any honey producers in the class, and that may be your apprentice program, like how to make a load of honey, right? You know, that's not bad. Does that make sense? Now we do screen the apprentices a little bit, teachers a little bit. So we do ask you if you can do a mic count and if you know how to use a miticide. And but does that make sense? Without saying more.
What's the approximate time commitment on each one of those?
The beginners course monthly classrooms are 2 hours once a month plus a
2-hour lab.
So if the
4 hours.
beginner's course is 4 hours a month, the apprentice program is probably similar, 4 hours a month. You know, it's probably twice a month working at your. Now we try to pair we do really work hard at pairing people geographically and trying to make it work so they're both your times sort of the apprentice. But it's hard. It just depends on how many teachers we get. The more teachers we get, the easier that becomes. You know, they're both great programs. I have worked in both of them, both on the learner side and on the teacher side, and surely I think it's a great way to be sustainable beekeeper, right? Learn the skills necessary to be sustainable. Yes.
One, don't call me Shirley anymore. Number two, can a third-year beekeeper be an apprentice teacher?
Yeah, no, I think you know, you're going to be working with people who are just so brand new. So if you're 2 or 3 years into beekeeping, you feel like you have the basic understanding on how to manage your bees, and then yes, you can be an apprentice teacher, right? Because your learners are going to be way behind where you are, right? And no one really expects the 1 year of beekeeping to be the, you know, like the Frank or the Keith or you know or the Carol beekeeper of the world. That's not the intent of these programs, right? So you're not going to take a learner who's in the apprentice program and make them a Carol a year. That's just not. You know, honestly, the apprentice program, we designed the apprentice programs like you take it before you get your bees, right? So you can do this and you can say, I'm not interested in this at all. I know they bought me a hive, but I don't like stinging insects. I don't like the veil. I don't like honey. I don't like any of it. I'm out.
I go in anaphylactic shock when I get stuck.
I'm out. I'm done with this. You know, and you have the only thing it costs you is $150 instead of thousands of bucks. So, you know, that was the idea of the apprentice program and the beginner program. A lot of people think you should spend a year learning before you buy bees, right? Why not? You know, make sure you're into it, because the reality is that 75% of people are out of beekeeping in 3 years. That's the reality of it. So you're seeing a bunch of people here who are not that, but that's the reality for new beekeepers. So anyway, moving on.
Do you still need to talk bees?
Yes, I need to talk bees. Wow, thank you.
What time is it down?
So keeping bees alive. So there's always 4 things to assess. Take your notes now. There's 4 things to assess when you do an inspection: bees, brood, food, disease. Say it: bees, brood, and disease. And every hive inspection, they're the 4 things that you're assessing with these management decisions. This hive size to colony size is I've become really fascinated in this. Is that, you know, in the winter right now, the bees exist in a cluster, right? And the cluster size is anywhere between a frame or 2, probably to a 10-frame box, and everything in between. And that's going to make a lot of change now on your management, but always getting a sense of how big your colony size is and how big their house is. It's very important as you sort of take care of your bees. Brood, is there brood now? Generally, I always feel like in this neck of the woods, brooding really doesn't start until the end of January to the beginning of February. How do we know this? Some people dig through their hives in December. Howard tells me don't go into your hives, right? Because you're not doing anything. But the other way to tell is you run temperature sensors in your hives, right? So some people put temperature sensors on top of their brood nests, and we know that when the bees are making brood, they keep the nest at 92 degrees. And the cluster, when they're not making brood, the cluster sits between 60 and 70 degrees, right? So if you take a temperature sensor and sit it above where the cluster is, and that temperature gets above 80 degrees, you can assume somewhere in that area they're making brood. And when they make enough brood, then the temperature will hit 92 degrees. So we know through both of those methods that brooding, that the queen usually starts to lay at the end of January and the beginning of February. So that means most hives are still broodless right now. Now, if you have some bees that came from Hawaii and they're used to brooding all year round and they have big colonies, you may find some brood in your hives now. The one thing, if there is no brood in your hives now, for those who procrastinate and haven't done their dribble or their vaporization with oxalic, you still have the ability to do that to knock down your mite levels, because there should be no cap brood. So if you're kind of late on doing your dribble, you can still do that today because it's going to get really cold. Some people, what I did never realize is they say, well, don't open your hives this time of year because you break the propolis or you chill bees, right, when you open them up. I don't know how important. But what I did learn by looking at Broodminder, you know, the adaptation that the bees make when you open that thing, they start to get active and they raise their temperature, right? So that cluster raised, you know, usually at 60 to 70 degrees, and you pop open the top of that hive, you'll see that if you have a temperature probe up there, you'll see the bees get to 75 or 80 degrees just based on you've woken them up and you've made them stir around. It takes 2 full days to get that cluster back to temperature of 60 to 70 degrees. So it takes a while before the bees sort of be able to sort of get themselves back in place and get them back into their winter cluster. And during that time, they're probably consuming more food and doing unnecessary stuff. So I don't think you're really at risk for assuming you don't leave the hive open for all day long, right? But I do think that you do wake them up and it takes a while for them to get back down. So food is the big one, right? Food. It's interesting because we have 15 nukes. I'm going off, but I'm going to go off on a tangent because I'm allowed. We have 15 nukes out of the apiary, out of the Cheslin apiary. They're all live this year, thank you. We learned from last year. So we have 15 5/5 nuke boxes, right? So they're 5 frames, 5 frames. They have insulation at the top. They got a solid bottom board, and they're not wrapped. And we weighed them all like September, October, November. So the average weight of these nukes in November, say, was 65 pounds, right? So these double 5 frame nukes were 65 pounds in November. 2 months later, no one wins anything, but 2 months later, what do you think the average weight of those nukes were? Anyone? 55, 35, 55, 60, 50, dead.
How much does a box weigh?
So how much resources have they consumed in the last 2 months? So the answer is, this is an average, right? So this is an average. So they weighed 65 pounds back November 15th, January 15th, they weigh 59 pounds on average. So these, again, this is a double 5. This isn't, I'm not trying to generalize this to anything beyond a nuke, 10 frames. Average cluster size is about 4 frames of bees. Those bees have lost 6 pounds over the last 2 months, which is interesting, right? Sort of interesting. A little bit less than I thought. I thought they were going to lose about 10 pounds. They lost 6 pounds. The other thing that's interesting in this, I know this is only so interesting. It's not going to get more interesting. But all those hives were managed exactly the same. They were all in the same box. They all have a solid bottom board. They all have top insulation. They all have about 4 seams of bees in them because they've all been managed the same. They were all fed. The range of weight loss goes anywhere between 4 pounds and 10 pounds. So why is that?
Number of bees.
Number of bees.
Size of the box.
They're all in the same size box.
No, the actual size of the box and the size of the bees.
Size of the box and size of the bees.
If you have the right size box and the right size bees, then you have the right size for efficiently
keeping the temperature with the least amount of resources?
How do you make that happen?
By the first one.
Making decisions on hive size, right? Yeah. So exactly, I think to optimize that, it is hive size, the colony size, the resource amount. But and then genetics. I heard genetics. You know, we're going to hear about locally adapted bees, right? Like get local bees if possible for a couple reasons. One reason is historically they've been shown to survive like locally or more likely to keep alive than non-local bees. They will probably produce more, and they're probably adapted to existing in our environment. So maybe the ones that consume less are more adapted, and the ones that consume more think they're in Hawaii. I'm not sure, but that was what we learned, and that's cool. So that's food. So the bottom line is those hives are not going to starve because we fed them sugar water and we got them up to weight, and they probably have 30 pounds of resources on them, and they've only consumed 5. So I think they're going to make it through March and not consume the resources, but we fed them. Now, the other thing that's of interest, one more thing. So one hive out there was a control. So we had one 5/5 nuke that we decided we're going to let it be the control. And it was a hive that was strong, that we didn't split. And in August, that hive was 70 pounds. So in August, this 5/5 hive was full of honey, and it was 70 pounds. So we decided we're not going to feed this hive because it's 70 pounds, and it doesn't need fed. It's completely heavy. We're not going to feed it. And that was August. Well, we fed everything else. We fed everything else up to 70 to 65 pounds. So everything else was lower. We got to 65 pounds. The fact that this was at 70, we left it be. Okay, so what happened? So it was 70 pounds at August. What do you think it was going into November with no feed? 35, 40, 50 pounds. So this is only one hive. So between August and November, in those 2 months, it lost 20 pounds from fall brooding and making winter bees and using up resources. And there was no fall.
It's the fall brooding without resources.
Fall brooding without resources, you know. And
Did it swarm?
it did not swarm.
Same queen?
It was requeened, but it was requeened earlier, so it sort of had existing as a population prior to.
Yeah, a mash weight loss like that, first thing goes through my mind is it's swarm because bees will leave with a large amount of honey. And if you don't go in the box in a while and your queen's not marked or clipped, you'll go back in there and not think they swarm because they did fully requeen and they're brood again. But you know, something like that would first thing. I know you mark your queens,
right?
So I'm assuming if there's still the same marked queen in there, then
It did not swarm, but that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
Because when your hive swarms, you'd be surprised how much resources it takes with
That's
it
right.
up to the tree.
That's right.
But no, it did not. It was fall bee production without food for 20-pound weight loss. And I ended up not feeding that hive, and I watched it drop, and I ended up putting fondant on it the last time I was out there because I was concerned it was going to starve because it had gotten down to 45 pounds or 44 pounds, and the weight of the boxes and frames and all that was about 35 or 40 pounds. So it only had 5 pounds left of resources. So what seemed like enough in August was not enough, which is a little disconcerting, right? Because I don't want to try to. It would be nice if anyway. You get what I'm saying? Yes.
With the fondant and the sugar water, are they like substitutes for each other, or are they form two separate?
Right. So I think they're substitutes for each other. The question now is like, what can you, if your bees need feed now, can you feed them sugar water? And it's probably too cold to feed them sugar water. Warren Graham, a master EAS master beekeeper, I remember when I first joined the club, he was talking about, those of you remember, Warren used to bring his yogurt containers, and he had these tiny yogurt containers that he put up right on top of the cluster and fed the bees right over the cluster, some liquid, but only small amounts. But if you dump a lot of liquid feed into your hives now, they're not gonna take it, it's gonna chill off, it's probably gonna put too much moisture in the hive. So right now, if you need to feed, you need to feed some sort of solid base sugar, which would either be homemade sugar bricks, candy, or fondant. And they all sort of work. Probably fondant and candy work a little bit better than dry sugar, in my opinion, but that's your option right now to feed the bees. And so
I put fondant in mine.
Mhm.
And I'm glad I made the choice, I guess.
Yeah,
I
and,
wasn't
and
sure.
can you overfeed them dry? Probably not, honestly. You know what I mean? Like if you're not sure and you're like, okay, I got some sugar, I got some fondant, and I put a shim at the top and put it right over the cluster. If they don't need it, is it gonna do any harm? Probably not. You know, it may still be there in a month or two, but it's probably not gonna harm them. How am I? And I'm way over. At least I'm aware. You know, I said, how am I doing? Know your mite count and treat effectively. Obviously, we talked about oxalic dribble. Mites kill colonies, despite what there are people out there that are working on bees that can coexist with the mites, and therefore the mites aren't going to result in colony death. But for 99% of us in the room, we should think relatively simply about this. Honestly, mites kill bees. Mites and their viruses kill bees. So you always want to know your mite levels. With that said, as a backyard beekeeper, you should know if your treatments are effective too. I really try to, and we'll do this again this year. A lot of the bigger beekeepers don't do mite levels on their hives just because it's just too many hives, right? But if you're a backyard beekeeper and you're keeping a few hives, you really should learn how to do a mite level, and I would say do a mite level every month and learn what your colony is doing with their mites. It's not that hard to do. We'll teach you how to do it. With that said, you think every miticide on the market is effective. You would hope so, right? You would think, like, if I buy this mite treatment and I read the package instruction and I effectively put this miticide on my hive, it's going to make it all better. Not necessarily. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to badmouth any company or product. I've just my own experience. But the best way to know is if it's working is to do your mite levels and test it that way, and that's something that is very important. Now, with that said, please don't go home and open up your hive and start doing mite levels thing. Today is not the day to do your mite levels, right? But maybe March and April is. Who knows?
Hey, George.
Historically, I thought March and April was too early, but you don't know what's going on. Let's check. Yes. January management considerations. Must-dos and to consider. Last slide, almost. Prevent starvation, must do. We talked about that. Keep insulation and wraps on the hives. There's no reason to take insulation and wraps off the hives right now. Keep them warm if you have them on there. And don't open hives unless it's absolutely vital to survival, which basically this time of year means starvation. See how I say don't do it. To consider. Some people like to remove dead bees from the bottom board with their wire bent hangers. They'll go out there and scoop the dead bees out of the bottom board. I don't think you're harming anything. I'm not sure if you're doing any good. It's a good time to move hives to new locations. So if you want to move hives to a different area in your yard or to a different yard, no better time than the winter to do that. They're in there for a while. They'll get reoriented. And plan on where to get bees and equipment.
All right, so I feel really bad because we brought all these people out to do demonstrations and we have a limited time in this room. So if the people demonstrating can keep it to 10 minutes, that would be cool. Eric is going to show us how to build a swarm trap.
It's a swarm box, actually.
Swarm box.
I've been beekeeping about 12 years. I have about 10 apiaries that I work, mostly small apiaries. So I have to travel back and forth between apiaries. And I tend to keep like 2 of these in my car now all the time. And I use them for a lot of purposes. But originally, I want to credit, this is from like reading late 1800s Beekeepers, right? Henry Alley is the guy. I think that I was trying to look back and remember exactly what inspired me to build this. And I think it was Henry Alley. And he did it a little different, I think, as I look back. He just had a screen top. And I think the thing that I was initially using it or building it for was to do what do you call it? My own swarm, right? Create my own swarm, to take bees without a queen, make them queenless for a while. And Henry Alley advised keeping them without the queen for a while. And so he did it like in a cool place in the basement or something. And so to have ventilation, to have a place where they could feed with the jar on top. This is my own adaptation of that idea. And the other thing that it has is, so the bottom, I can slide out this. So if I use it for that artificial swarm, or for a real swarm, which is really how I've ended up using it more, I can bring it back to the to my yard, and I build it. You could make it a large different size, but I'm doing Michael Palmer's four frame nukes. So I can take this, feed it. I take an empty jar to get the lid off, and then I'll take the jar with feed and put it on there like while it's in the basement. And then when I want to introduce it into a box with an open entrance, because they're locked in there, I then slide this out. And I usually add, so they don't have this little hole when I slide it out. But if I don't want them to have that, I slide a little piece in there, block it up so that the entrance will be at the bottom where I want it to be.
Is that just a normal box on top that you cut out to put a screen in? Is that just
No,
a
I
normal-
built it. I mean, I started out as a carpenter. That's where I had the gall to think I could be a beekeeper. It was like, oh, I can just make the boxes. And a lot of my early boxes were from furniture people threw out, and I just cut it up and made my first boxes. A lot of them, not a good idea. Like beautiful furniture isn't necessarily good wood for a bee box, right? In the environment, like anything that has a nice laminate to it looks really pretty. Not a good thing in the few years.
Why the screens on the sides?
So it would have ventilation. That's what Henry Alley talked about. So his, as I say, when I look back to try and remember, because it's like I've had these about probably like 6 or 7 years I've been using them. And as I say, now I keep 2 of them in my car all the time as I'm running between or running to catch a swarm. I know it's kind of heavy for actually catching a swarm in a tree or something. That's the reason rope is on there, because I'm a rigger, so I just put a rope up there. Yeah.
Another question. Okay, so if you have a large swarm and you get the queen in there and then you put the lid on top, because the screen's open, the rest of the bees are going to smell the pheromone. Do they stay clustered on the outside of the box when you move the box?
Yeah, so I typically, like if I'm catching a swarm, I'm not sure if the queen's in there and it's getting late. I typically come back 6 in the morning the next day to get them. And if I see that they're all on the screen on the outside, I'll take one of those bags, those netted bags, and put it over top. And then I can just move the whole thing in my car.
I did learn this year, like if you get a large swarm out of a tree and you put it into a nuke size box, and remember all these bees are wet because they've engorged themselves before they've swarmed, so they're sitting in a tree and they're very wet. And then if you don't have enough ventilation, they're just going to cook really quickly. And you would, and I killed a swarm. I'll admit it, I did it. And I set a box and I set it in the shade and I thought it was going to be okay. 3 or 4 hours, and it had some ventilation, not as nice as what Eric had. It had some ventilation, but 4 hours later I came back and I had a 2-inch pile of dead bees on the bottom of the swarm trap. So I love the ventilation.
It's not
on
like
your
they're
swarm
dispersed on frames and there's air pockets between each frame and they can manipulate the temperature. They're just a big ball inside a box.
Correct. Oh, it killed me. Well, it didn't kill me.
Make you sad. You're saying.
Very good idea.
It's not too hard. And I tend to not make my equipment out of plywood, but this one I made out of plywood because I'm not going to live in here for very long. I try and avoid the chemicals of the plywood, exterior plywood probably.
You can dumpster dive for swarm traps for sure.
Why
Can you
4
circle
frames
back?
instead of 5?
Because I'm working off of a Michael Pollan's thing where, if you have a 4-frame nuke and 2 of them fit side by side on a top, I don't have
10 frame.
Yeah, so then a 10 frame, 2 of these will fit perfect on top and he overwinters that way with, with a screen here. Like, in a way like this isn't quite it. Like, a double screen with it. This isn't it. This was actually to show you that you could also end up, instead of adding it to a nuke, if it was a really big swarm, just do that without the netting in there. You could put it on top and do it this way.
Yeah, 2 5-frame nuke boxes are wider than a 10-frame, but 2 4-frame nuke boxes fit perfectly on a 10-frame. And not to plug Ike, but Ike makes one of the few people, Forest Hill, he makes 4-frame nuke boxes for those interested in going that way of beekeeping. It is nice to be able to stack nuke boxes on top of 10-frame boxes occasionally.
Yeah, that would be
I really think every beekeeper should have a swarm box, honestly. If you're keeping bees, you want to catch that swarm. If no one's perfect at swarm prevention, but if these bees leave your box, you want to try to catch it for 2 reasons. One, you won't end up in your neighbor's yard. And secondly, that swarm only has about a 15 to 20% chance to survive. So it's going to be much likely to survive if you catch it and put it in a box than if it goes out on its own. So this is a great example of a homemade swarm trap, and it's easy to make. It's fun. It's like Christmas when you see bees flying in and out of your swarm trap, 3 bees. And then you can think about where to put it. Like, where am I going to hang my swarm?
Somebody had a question over there?
Next to
I did, but I don't even understand my own question. It was like, I wanted you to circle back to the keep them away from the queen in the basement. I'm like, I don't
So
understand.
you're going to make an artificial swarm. I think what Henry Alley was talking about. So you do a shook swarm from a strong hive that you have.
Okay.
Right? And you're not a queen, just worker girls, or maybe some boys in there too, right? And you put it in this box, maybe with a few frames, maybe with 4 frames, I don't know. But you put it in, and then you take it and put it in the basement. It'd be queenless, so that they really recognize they're queenless overnight. That's, I think, what the quote was. I honestly haven't. I ended up not using it for that purpose. I'm naive in my queen rearing. I'm a little bit unskilled. George has helped me a few times. I've cut my finger on the table, saw my eye. I've had eye operations recently, so I think the grafting is probably not in my bailiwick very much. But I would say that, so you leave that overnight, and then when you introduce the queen the next day, they're ready to take her. That's the theory. Right?
So you're suggesting people bring that in? Are you a divorce attorney? Bring that into my house. It's yeah.
I'm not going to comment on that.
You have a question? Yeah, just to be clear, are you putting frames in the boxes, or are you just putting?
Sometimes, like when I go catch a swarm, I might not have a frame. I might just go with an empty box, or I might put one in on the side, so I have that room to dump the swarm in there, and then I just cover it up. And they don't. In a way, one of the problems I had early on when I first started using this and then bringing it back to the yard and putting it on here and introducing them is they'd stay up here for too long. They liked it up here. So in a way, I don't want them to like it if I'm catching a swarm and I want them to move down here. And this box, I got nice frames in with maybe a little bit, if I have some, some honey or some pollen or something to attract them or draw them home anyway. And then I put this on, they move down. Once I take that thing out, they'll move down. Even though there's a little bit of food up here, they'll move down. And then I don't have to work too hard to move them into this box.
You're a beekeeper if you have one of these in your trunk.
Right.
I keep 2 now, really, because also
in the trunk in your car.
It's great for a great tool. Like I come to a yard and oh shit, I messed up, and there's some queen cells there, and I want to make a split, but I'm going to take it to the other. Oh, there was a queenless hive at the other yard, so just throw the frame with the queen cell in there and some bees. It's pure. I'll take it to the other yard. So that's, it's just a tool that I use now all the time.
Question.
And in the car, it's ventilated like it's talking about. So it's easy to move them in a hot car. It's kind of.
Question. To answer a question that was interjected earlier, using plywood, we've used particle board very successfully. And these don't object to that at all. 3/8-inch particle board. We make our swarm traps the size of both those boxes. And we got one tree. I won't tell anyone where it is. We got 4 swarms last year on one tree.
Wow.
We got 3. One thing also to help with recycling, there's a lot of construction going around here, new house construction. What you want to do is keep your eye on it if you're going past And towards the end of the construction, they're gonna put that dumpster there and they'll rip out all the 2x4s and plywood and other boards that they use. I filled up my pickup truck 2 years ago. I'm still working on it. I got 25 boxes I made out of that stuff for free. Free wood's not a bad number, you know, so, and they throw it away. So you're actually doing a double duty. You're reusing it and recycling and reusing it in effect. So it's free and, keep your eye out for construction. There's a lot of it around here, you know, so they just trash it.
All right, so this is to prove that you can make anything. This is solar wax melter. You'll probably have to come up later and look at it. So it's just a plywood box. It does show what the heat does to expanded polystyrene. You can see that's all kind of melted. And one of the tricks was
Want to try to spin the whole table.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was.
I don't think it's the best. I already made it back.
Yeah.
So I bought these silicone pie things. They really help get the wax out. They're pretty expensive. That's where the wax goes into. I was had trouble getting out of old metal pans. So the only thing missing here, of course, is a sheet of glass. I didn't want to bring it in broken glass. I just have an old.
What's all this stuff?
This is all sorted.
Is it propolis? We want it.
This is all old comb.
Old comb.
This is all the cocoons. If you have old comb, you start thinking, wow, it didn't really melt very well. Well, it's because it's the cocoons. There's hardly any wax in it. So I put that in the trash. You can see the wires from the old combination.
You can also use that old comb for your smoker.
Yeah, to start your smoker with. Yeah.
Help start.
I had a roll of coffee filter paper, and it goes through coffee filters. Okay, which so you can. It's just box. I was intrigued by. It's all eaten out underneath. Some critters have been eating the bottom of the box.
Trying to get to.
But it still works. And then I had a couple other quick things.
So I'm terrible at this, but when you're working your hive and you know you have bird comb on your frames and you scrape your frames or clear your frames, it's a good idea not to throw it on the ground. Is to have like a coffee can and add it to the coffee can, and then over time, maybe you'll have enough to put in something like this or a smaller version of this, and then you can get your own beeswax, which is all. So
Your apiary clean.
keep your apiary clean, correct, nice and tidy, and don't throw like wax on the ground.
So this is my example of the entrance reducer. I stapled on some 1/4-inch hardware cloth on it and nipped out little bits so they can get in and out easier. Have notches at the top and bottom, so if there is a row of dead bees, they can maybe stick it out to here. You can stick it in the hive. You can put push pins into the hive, in the metal, and help keep mice from pulling out. I've used just without the metal in the past. And sometimes you'll see it all eaten out here. The mice will eat a hole, eat through the wood to make it big enough to get through. And this is the weird bottom board that I saw online. The entrance is actually, they have to go up and up through here. I'll show how I can show that. They go in here and then up here. I haven't used it yet. I'm waiting for a swarm to put it on there. I think it'll keep mice out. I think it'll be harder for the mice to get up into there. The guy who put it online was trying to keep hornets out. I added this little door on here. You could turn this little thing so you can get a regular entrance if you want. Anyway, I made a real mess of the rug over here with this thing. So I had to
You got a question?
For you, back to your wax melter. What sits inside? What's the container that sits inside that you put your
So
wax?
I have a piece of metal,
Just a flat.
this flat piece of metal that's painted black. And
It's like flashing.
from what I've read, it's like you'd think you'd want to paint the inside black, but you really want it white so it reflects onto the wax. And I'm not sure if I finished my thought. I have an old store window. that I put over here.
Do you by any chance write your dimensions? This is my project for the winter. So this is really fun to see me and my husband's getting a good kick out of it. Put together, and just to, do you have any kind of like how you dimensions like this big?
Find the window first.
Dumpster dive first, and then
I actually made a fancy one with 2 panes and everything. They covered it, and 2 panes don't work as well as a single pane.
Okay.
As a side note, I built one using the totes, you know, the black totes that have the yellow plastic top. I used a turkey pan, an aluminum turkey pan, kind of tilted up, and a dumpster dived a piece of glass on top of it, and it seems to work really well.
It doesn't have to be fancy by any means.
I like that. I don't have to measure it.
I have a question in the back.
Yeah. Where did I see it?
I know you saw it online, but.
I don't know. Some guy went through enough detail that I could. You know, these pieces of wood used to be sided on my garage.
Be your political sign.
Yeah, it's a political sign. Vote for Audrey.
Eli's got a question.
How do you keep so I've built a couple of these. If anyone wants 2 half-built ones, it's a good place to start. I have an electric mini melter now, but how do you keep the bees from getting under the glass? It seems like no matter how flush I made it, the bees would smell that wax melting and they would just be inside it.
It's tough to get this totally square and level. I've tried putting in different foam insulations on it, but they all seem to deteriorate in the sun. So it is a challenge. Right now, I have to shim up one leg or the other sometimes because it doesn't seem quite square.
The other thing, if you're experimenting with this that I've used somewhat successfully, is a medium in a pan. Just a medium super, queen excluder with a layer of paper towels, and then you put all the wax on top of that, and then another one. And then you have bees flying everywhere for a couple of days, and then the window on top of that, you get bees flying everywhere for a couple of days. But if you're just doing a small amount of wax, that also can work.
It could be super simple. The sun really works.
What I use for mine is I use hand clamps. I put them on. For me, it works fine just on 2 sides.
Okay.
If I really was quirky, then I'd have to put it on all 4.
But the club has got one that's George is available. Is a club? I don't know where that one is anymore. Honestly, I haven't seen that in years. Jack's had it long. I haven't seen that one, Keith, in years, honestly. Yeah. Which means that you can use that one and just return it.
What temperature does beeswax melt at?
147.
Do that. I was gonna say 146, but I'm not gonna argue that, you know. The other thing you tell, a lot of people process their beeswax using boiling water and hot water, and they overheat it on it. They heat it higher than 147 or 146. And what happens to wax when you overheat it? It gets darker, right? So beeswax should be bright canary yellow color. So when you use a solar wax melter, and when you can control that temperature to be around 145 to 150 degrees, the wax you get out of that is bright yellow. If you're boiling it and processing it that way, it's going to turn brown. Not that it makes it bad, but that's why some beeswax should not be dark brown or tan. It should be bright yellow. If you see it darker, it means it's been overheated during the process. What do we got? We got more
Wax melter.
Ow.
The thing that I couldn't buy or couldn't find to buy, one that would melt wax in the wintertime. I took honey off in October. I'm going to melt the wax down. This setup was originally a solar melter. Well, sun gets too far down the horizon, and I can't tip it up high enough to get enough sun in there. So I said, okay, put a light bulb in. So I took a incandescent light bulb.
You need.
This here, $2 pan at Walmart. Just cut the corners out, welded it back together so it would fit.
Simple.
Roll some bottom. Paper towel, put it in there. Put your cappings, your wax, whatever in there. It sits in here on a taper. Melts into this. $1. Okay. I like cheap.
$1.25 now.
I'm gonna flip this up just so you can.
Yeah, pretty good.
I got it. So you can see the light bulb. All it is, just a lamp, a socket, and a light bulb.
You got a thermostat in there too?
I'm working on that. This is my thermostat. It's a dimmer switch.
The other people where for new beekeepers, where you can get wax, not only scraping your frames, but also when you harvest your honey, right? So when you go to harvest honey, oftentimes you'll cut the wax off the honey before you spin it out, and that wax cappings you can put in there too.
And these are wax cappings. That's why it's so beautiful. If you're going to melt wax out of dark wax like he did there, it's a little darker in color, but not a whole lot. You know, I still make candles out of it. Works great. My biggest reason for melting is to put it on wax strip the foundation. Put it on foundation. These build it out like in 2 days. If you put it on there, I love it. Gets them going quicker. That's enough. That's a 200-watt light bulb. 30 minutes. This is a long. 30 minutes, I can go from 40 degrees to 150. This is a polystyrene box, polystyrene hive. The bottom is lid. Just turn it upside down, glue it on. Part on the inside just holds this on an angle. Wax strips through the holes into here. I can do 2 batches in here without changing the paper towel. Once I get 2 batches done, while it's still warm, I throw that out, put a new one in, more stuff. I can melt wax all day. It just really does a great job. And then once you get up to, you know, like he was saying, the only thing I haven't worked out is a thermometer where it'll get up to a certain degree and stay there.
There's a device on Amazon called Inkbird. It's made for when you're growing stuff and you have heated beds and whatnot.
Right.
Okay. And if you can plug whatever device you want into it, you can set the temperature for as high or as low as you want, whatever, and it will either cool or heat. You just set it to heat. You can just plug that right into that, put the thermostat inside, and it's going to work.
I gotta talk to you after.
What's the name of it again? Inkbird makes it. It's a thermostat you plug into. Just like a warm,
like INK.
Okay.
What's the thermometer? Instead of a metal box, we could just use a plastic box.
This box?
Yeah.
It has to be something that'll handle heat. Like if I turn this all the way up and walk away and leave it, it's gonna get 220 degrees in that box. Don't wanna do that. 220 degrees will melt this. What I did is I put an aluminum box on the inside of it. See it, the aluminum box inside. I can get that temperature anywhere I want and it doesn't bother the phone. And as far as sealing it, I did this tape here I used, this thin tape you use on, you put a camper on a pickup. Put tape around the edge to seal it. Same stuff, $2. Just stick it on, sticky on one side.
Got a question over here?
One note with electric heaters and stuff, sounds like this is a wonderful system, but just if as you're kind of doing DIY projects, just try to be mindful that you're putting hot wax, paper towels, and a heat source together. So maybe there's an outbuilding or outdoor space just so that because the fire risk of building your own thing might be a little higher. So just maybe run it while you're at home and not like under your bed.
Volunteer firefighter?
Yeah.
And there's an orthopedic risk to dumpster dive.
That's fine. Which may go beyond your ability to save a few bucks.
Are you having trouble finding light bulbs?
Actually, what I do is I find hardware stores that nobody knows about. I go in and I buy all four. No, I have bought them offline. I wasn't able to find the 200 watt.
Yeah, I was wondering about the 200 watt.
I've actually done this with 50 watt, but it takes an hour to heat up the temperature. Use 200 watts, get it up to temperature right here, turn this down halfway to maintain 100.
I have a warming box. I do the same thing with crystallized honey in 5 gallon pails.
Okay.
So you can get the like chicken coop lights, 250 watt light bulbs. So they do still sell warming lamps. But yeah, you go find a standard incandescent bulb. Good luck.
The warming lights would work in here fine.
Yeah.
I don't have enough room under this pan.
Right.
To put one, and I don't think you can buy them that are dimmable. Because I have a dimming situation here. I didn't even try that.
You probably can use those reptile, the ceramic reptile things, and it's no light. It's just heat, and use them for reptile tanks.
Okay.
So for new beekeepers, this is what beekeepers do when they're not
If anybody's a photographer, floodlights.
Yeah.
If you remember, we did the food making thing in my garage, and all I did was put hot lights over the sugar candy, and I totally heated it up. Like a cold garage got hot from hot lights.
Everyone, if everyone should come in over there and check this thing out. This thing's pretty cool. Ours was cool. This is cool too.
You want me to leave it here?
Yeah, put it over there.
Yeah, because Ernie's got to go.
Because Ernie's going to bring his magic up.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is for cleaning. Your wax is going to have water in it.
See, beautiful yellow. I mean, this is wax that's been heated 145 degrees, right? This is what it looks like. Top wrap. Great. Beautiful. This is like gold.
146.
146. Sorry.
Anyhow, your wax is going to be wet. I don't care what you put in there. It's going to have water in it. It's going to condense on here. Just put this in there, clean that off. Water refracts light.
Ernie is our nuke guy. He keeps all bees in nucleus colonies, 5-frame boxes. I've learned a ton from Ernie through the years. So,
this is a insulated hive. I can pass it around if you want to look at it closely. I'll show you what I'm planning to do.
Was this an Ernie made insulated hive?
Yeah, that's Ernie insulated hive. Don't want to get the one that has the paper on it. It's one that has paper on it. So I'll use that. We got to make that street handle for it. It helped work out. Use your representative. Put this on here. This is 30 degrees. These are 45. 45 sleeve shear. Use that liquid nail. But yeah, it is very time consuming. You got to put screws through here, and I glue it also. You got to have lots of clamps. You got to put wood against it, clamp it this way, flip it over. I run out of clamps before I get there. 2 of them's about all I can do. Then they got to set overnight. The glue sets up solid. And the R factor of wood is 0.84. And this is 5, so you get an R factor of about 6. So that's extreme as far as most commercial people don't worry about this because they send theirs down to Georgia and California. But the idea of this is going to be year round.
The same way with your home. Summertime, you wouldn't have a house that wasn't insulated. Your air conditioning would be tremendous. Same way with the bees. They'll be carrying in nectar instead of carrying in water to cool the hive. Yeah. Surprised how much water they got to carry in to keep it. If it gets up like 90 degrees, they got to keep that. You know, if they didn't keep that cool and keep bringing water in, you'd have honey and wax running out the front of it. The idea is run this year round.
You just cut it on a table saw?
Table saw, yeah. And it's the long pieces I can cut the 30-degree on the table saw. I get little pieces that it jerks, so then you got to use bandsaw.
So if you got a hive for Christmas, next Christmas, you need a table saw.
That inch and a half, is that inch and a half styrofoam? Is that 2-inch styrofoam or inch and a half?
You can use any size foam if you want to go higher. It goes up to, I think, around R20. If you want to go higher, what you do is you measure the foam and go double the length.
1 inch?
Yeah, that looks like an inch. I think an inch
this
is
is
R
1 inch.
six.
Do you
Or
use
five, I
more,
mean.
any top insulation? Because one of the things I found is side insulation in the winter, you end up with more condensation on dripping down from the ceiling. Do you have a system for top insulation as well?
Ceiling, I have honey pecan wool stuff.
Okay.
Pockets insulated also.
You have a question?
Why the 30-degree bevel on the top?
That's what I want to know.
That's so you don't rock the wood out. If I kept it flat, then snow and water and so forth go in here and rock the wood.
I'd imagine you would also need that so you get your hive tool into the wood.
Yeah, you got to have room to get your hive tool in there. Yeah.
Does your inner cover and top covers fit on that too?
No, they do not. You have to make notes. But I use the migratory cover, so it's no big deal. You got to make notes.
How much room are you leaving to get your hive tool in there to?
Yeah, it's really no problem to get it in there because you got the caper of this.
You're using you said you're using a covers just a flat piece.
Yeah.
It's not telescopic.
No.
How do you insulate that?
Yes, that's. But you have your problem with your cans. I use cans, jars for feed. Come summertime though, get the honey pecan wool and stuff. Then you use the other one, which is not really necessary for insulation.
You know, insulated hives are hot right now. There's so many bee companies making them for sure, you know, so I don't know what to say, but they're popular.
Ernie, do we just drop the insulation board off beside your barn? Put our name on it?
I see a lot of it on there.
Yeah.
I think that's around $33 for a 4-inch sheet of this.
Yeah.
So I never found out how many I can make, depending on the size of the hive. That way, make a lot of things.
Yeah, your time, the materials, the table saw, it all makes sense financially.
Mark?
That's cool. Thanks, Ernie.
I was out at Ike's yesterday and I happened to look down and I found mouse guards. So I was out at Ike's and I happened to look down when I was checking out and there were these mouse guards. And it's like, oh, look, a little tiny mouse guard that was for a nuke was $7.68 or something. And then next to it were the 8 frame and the 10 frames, and they were actually a little more expensive. It's like, this is nuts. So, you know, and then I said, oh, well, Amazon will be a lot cheaper. And that's true. It was, you know, you could get a $1.58. Of course, you have to buy 12 of them, but you know, you can get them cheaper depending on what you're doing. Absolutely. So somewhere between $1.50 and $16 for a mouse guard seemed to be a little excessive. Go to the next slide. Thank you.
All you need is a table saw.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can make your own. One is you need a table saw with a
dado blade.
With a dado blade, exactly. I was trying to say dado and I kept thinking dado. George dado, right? Yeah, it's dado blade. So this is actually a George creation here. It's just a the standard reducer, basically sliced. Yes, you could have one of the reducers. So this is actually Howard already talked about. You could take that and make a mouse guard. You could actually go with slightly larger grid and just use the grid as the mouse guard. Mice can chew through the wood, but they can't chew through the metal. So that's the only detriment that I've seen to these. I'm running a couple of them, and I do see places where they've been chewed. Not chewed all the way through, but the mouse was obviously chewing on it to try to get
And
through.
the bees chew this stuff.
And the bees chew, yeah. If you're seeing chewing on the inside, it's the bees. If you're seeing chewing on the outside, it's probably mice. Next. How do you do this? This is upside down, but it's the ruler's upside down. But the point of it is you can find some dumpster diving flashing here. And okay, great. What do I do with it? Well, let's start with, let's measure. So I went out the first time I was doing this, I went out and I measured. It was 12 1/4 for these 8-frame hives. Great. Cut them all to 12 1/4, went out to put them in, and oh wait, that one's 12 3/4. This one's 12 1/2. This one's 11. And they were all different sizes and all different shapes, and it was such a pain in the butt. So, get your stuff. Next slide.
The 8-frame equipment runs non-standard.
And even the 10-frame bottom boards can run non-standard. They're not all the same. Right? You think they are, and then you get out and you're going, oh, it's 14 3/4. No, it's not. It was 15. Well, crap, I cut it to 14 3/4, so I got a 1/4 inch gap. What do you do with that? Well, see, you can't quite see the black tape on here, but you can use some Gorilla Tape to cover it up. The bees will go through through the paper tape, but they won't go through the Gorilla Tape, and they don't do a very good job going through duct tape either.
Wine corks work good.
Say again?
If you need a 1/4 inch, take a wine cork.
A wine cork, yeah.
Perfect. I use it.
Absolutely. I've been clean and sober for 35 years, so wine corks are a lot harder for me. Yeah. Okay, next one. Be careful when you're dealing with this stuff. You should probably use a pair of gloves, at least for the hand that's holding your metal. Very simple process here. You get out your drill, you put the 3/8 inch drill in, 3/8 of an inch, and you drill your holes. Okay, well, where do I drill my holes? Well, I'll just drill them all across the bottom in a line. Well, no, you should probably drill them kind of, you can see how well I did with this. They're not perfectly round. The bees don't care. The mice do, because they can't, if the mice can't get its head through, it can't go in. So again, you just drill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many as you want. If you think you drilled too many, then throw some duct tape on it. In the winter, you might want to decrease the amount of airflow into the hive. So I use duct tape to do that. Another tool that's kind of nice to have, you don't have to go out and buy them, but you will need a pair of these. You need some metal shears. That again?
You guess there's dumpster diving too.
Depends on the scissors. I've got some Cutco scissors that can cut through this without a problem, and it's still cut paper, no problem. These are kind of nice if you don't have tools that Ed has for sheet metal bending. These work really nicely. You can do your own bending in a cheap way. Like that's all bent up, fine. I'll just use these to straighten them up and get them set. You can also just get a nice piece of wood to help pound it up. A hammer's nice, put down just pound it out straight. Drill your holes, drill a couple holes in the bottom so that it goes into the bottom board, and you're done. How much time did I spend? I don't know, probably more than I should have. Would it have been easier for me to drive out to Ike's and buy them or just order from Amazon? Sure.
Not as fun.
Not as much fun. The other question is, how many hives do you have? If you've got one hive or two hives, just buy the stuff from Amazon. If you're talking, 10 or 15 hives, well, then you might want to dumpster dive. Are you cheap? Frugal? Then, dumpster diving might be for you. But there's no wrong answer to this. Just these are methods to do it. The wrong answer is don't put a mouse guard on.
So one thing to remember too, is if we're going out to like multiple out yards, put all this stuff together in a kit. I use the 3/4 inch construction or the 1/2 inch construction fabric squares he was talking about, and then shears and a staple gun, and all goes into a toolbox. And I do 175 hives. I'll put mouse guards on them clean very quickly. Because with that method, you can cut it to length while you're at the hive. So all my bottom boards are also different dimensions.
Yeah, exactly. You bought them all at the same place. How come they're different? Or not? Or you bought them from 5 different vendors, and they all different. By the way, I'm a backyard beekeeper. I have one primary yard with 7 hives, but I also manage another apiary with 4 hives and another apiary with 3 hives. And right now I'm managing the Bondsville site. So yeah, that's a great point of having all your stuff, okay, oh shoot, clip, and you're good to go.
I think I got an idea, which is always dangerous. Ed, listen, Ed. So instead of one of the events that we're going to do, instead of a conference, is we're going to do a social event at a dumpster. And it's going to lead it. And he's going to dumpster dive and figure out everything that's in there that could be used in beekeeping. You up for it?
Is this an all you can
Sure.
eat?
Okay, stay tuned. I'm not for anything. That sounds like you're kind of right. You and Chris, dumpster together.
A robbing screen, can that be effective as a mouse guard?
Yeah, robbing screen can be, depends on the size of the, no, robbing screen generally has got large openings on the side, but it can be if you set a 1/2 inch grid, 1/2 inch hardware cloth that the bees can get in and out of, but the mice can't get through.
How about the top? We have some robbing screens that are.
It's 3/8 of an inch. The mice can get in if it's bigger than 3/8 of an inch.
Sorry.
Are they going to climb the screen and go down?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you ever try drywall corner bee? Works just as good.
Yes.
Snips, buy it in there, and it's got the holes all drilled in there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just
Drill a couple extra in there is what I did. Yeah. Depends on the bottom boards are all a little bit different. So snow's on this one, so you can't quite see. That bottom board had a lip that was that tall, and then the opening. So that corner bead wouldn't work. It wasn't tall enough.
Well, you turn it the other way. So the angle's facing out, so it pushes up against the entrance.
Yeah, but the problem was that the landing board was here. Then there was a piece of wood here, and then the opening, and so the top of that was too, basically it was partially open. So that one didn't work.
I always put the reducer on first.
Yeah.
And then you have maybe a gap, maybe 2 inches.
Yeah, good point.
Just leave that up against there, and you're done. They're going to get in that hole.
Right.
And then,
Isn't it such a nice feeling though when you go up to your hive and open the top and a mouse runs out? It's done some good as a beekeeper. You've given that mouse a nice place to live for the winter.
My horror story was out at that 252 apiary. I pulled the lid off of these hives that I wasn't managing at the time. That was my first trip out that looked. I pulled the lid off and I looked in, and there were 5 sets of eyes looking back up there.
Come on, raise your hand if if ever your hive is acted as a mouse home. Raise your hand. There you go. Everyone, new beekeepers, look, it happens, right?
I keep them in my store to put cats.
I one time put the excluder on after the mouse is already. Mouse head was sticking out.
We were gonna have a recap on the North American Honeybee Expo.
It was great. George was there selling stuff. There's all kinds of other vendors. Lots of really good talks. I learned quite a bit from Randy Oliver. He took a lot of products and did sort of a review of them. So there was, he did like, for example, all those vaporizers. He did a test to see, you know, how much which one would vaporize the most, and all of them come out about the same. It turns out that they basically put about half of the oxalic acid that you put into them into your hive.
Because half of it comes out the top, at least for mine. I know like half of it's leaking
But
out.
he measured it and said basically when you stick it in, you get about half as much in the hive. He's also doing a lot of work on trying measuring the oxalic acid on the bees themselves to see how much actually gets onto the bees, but he didn't have that data at this time because of rain or something. So it's a really, really good talk. And he also did a good review on entrance reducers. Do they work? How do they work? And really good talk there. Just a lot of good things that
Isn't he the one that recommends using more oxalic acid? Is that why? Because he feels like half is leaking out?
he didn't make you that recommendation.
He's not the only one? He's not the only one that does that.
Yeah, but basically, he's showing that those vaporizers don't get quite as much in there. He is using dribble all the time, but he doesn't use sugar water. He uses glycerin.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Randy Oliver, I guess he's still a commercial beekeeper, was a commercial beekeeper with a biology background and does a lot of his own citizen science on honeybees. And he has a website, scientificbeekeeping.com. And if you've never been there, you should go there, honestly, and read some of his stuff. It is really nicely done, scientificbeekeeping.com.
So here's an interesting aside for you. I was at a conference where Randy was speaking. Randy was done speaking and he was back off to the side. And I counted the number of PhDs and postdocs that were standing around him asking him questions of how to do this and how to do that and what do I. It was incredible just watching that interaction and the knowledge this guy has.
For those of you that are new, why we should buy local bees, which I did not when I got started. So we all learn. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So all I did was go online and look this up for these ideas. Climate adaptation, forage familiarity, disease resistance, reduced stress from transportation. I think the last two were my ideas. Support local beekeepers and build local relationships with keepers and suppliers. So I reached out to our club and I asked who sells bees. I know that we have a lot more people in this club than the people that responded. But I have a list of people here and their email addresses. My hope is to get George to let us put it on our website so that you can go to the website and find the list of sellers within this club. What I would like to have is their name, their phone number, their email, and their location. So I don't know if we'll do this as a map or as a list or just split it out in region. But a show of hands for the people who are local bee sellers here. I know Eli's here. Carol's here. So just real quickly, and everybody's in different areas. I think Eli is down in my area. I'm down in Delaware County. He's in Aston, PA. Carol, where are you? Lincoln University. You're Frank Rakowski now. See, I've heard of you. I know your name. I've met you. So
Yeah, we saw these too.
you want to come and talk quickly?
Well, if I have a minute, I'd like to talk about something different.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
I didn't realize we weren't doing the seminar this year.
The conference?
Yeah, right. If anybody's interested in attending a conference still this winter, the Western Pennsylvania seminar is February 7th and 8th in Monroeville, which is a hike from here, but it's straight across the turnpike, and the turnout is it's all in person, and there's generally hundreds of people there, and a huge vendor set up with Man Lake and Maxan, Better Me, and all the big vendors. I wanted to say that, but also I'm the vice president of the State Beekeepers Association. The State Beekeepers Association is the biggest commodity association in Pennsylvania with 1,800 members. There's the Chester County Club is a member, or it is part of the state association, in that the way that the state association functions is there's 35 associations like Chester County that feed up into the state organization. We have a website. Anybody wants to take a look? There's a lot going on at the state association. We just finished the farm show where we have 3 different areas where we do education, a marketplace. We negotiate with the state about the new B law, the current B law, and the proposed B law are on the website for people to consider. It's not going anywhere very fast because of the information that we receive back from the members. So it'd be great if everybody signed up for the state association. It's like $20, and there's power in numbers. Like, all of the legislatures know that the state association is made up of a lot of his constituents. So a benefit to the association. We also have a newsletter that goes out.
And you can join through our website. We get $2 if you go to our website.
The state association needs volunteers too. Like, I was going to say though, if anybody, even if you don't have beekeeping experience, if you have time to volunteer, let George know, or let others know, and they'll find a place where you can help. For people who have a few years of experience keeping bees, if you want further education, you can look to us to educate you to be a mentor or get to the next level. Beekeeping is hard, no doubt about it. It takes years to learn how to be a good beekeeper. I've been a member of this association for 20 years. I'd be happy to help anyone get better. So, look to the leadership of the organization to,
Yeah, for the new beekeepers, the amount of skill in this room is insane, honestly. Look around and look at the people that have been doing this for a while, and the amount of skill set in this room is just incredible. And everyone's always been more than happy to help. You could do it formally through the apprentice program, but you can do it informally at meetings too, and just learn who the personalities are, and please ask for help. No one's going to bite. No one's going to charge.
Yeah, it takes 4, 5, 6, 7 years to become like a really experienced beekeeper. Like the whole season is a year long, so like a year or two just generally isn't in. The other part of it is how many hives you can get your hands into. So having 4 apiaries where you can go and get experience in hives, there's not, especially for new beekeepers, there's nothing like being in hives with an experienced beekeeper. You see things that you just don't see anywhere else. The way that you can pull frames and set them down and leave frames with bees on the ground and have 6 or 7 hives open at the same time. There's so much to see. So try and get around with experienced beekeepers, especially in these yards. I'll stop. We sell bees.
Yeah, okay, so a few people. So if we want to maybe go outside the room, should we do this real fast?
Yeah. You have to be licensed to sell bees, so you have to have a queen and new seller to sell bees officially. So you have to be inspected and licensed to sell bees. That's the law. We don't get in the middle of that. Well, no, if you're selling bees, we have a forum site on the website, right, where you can go ahead and as a seller or as a buyer, you can say I have bees to sell or I want to buy bees and post it there. And the plan is to use the website to help promote local seller.